Snap fail. Haha. Awesome.
Okay, both cameras are rolling. Okay, speed. Camera 3.
Yeah, what episode is this? What's that? 1, 2, 3. That was the best one ever. Okay.
Oh, I only had one clap.
It's a good thing we're professionals here.
Excellent. Yay!
But did you ever disappear into your imagination as a hooker in a board?
Hi everybody, welcome to the 8th episode of Knights at the Round Table in a slightly new location with an actual round table. Today we're discussing the film Labyrinth, which was released in theaters in 2006. It follows the story of a young girl who, in fascist Spain of 1944, escapes into an eerie but completely engrossing fantasy world. And I will start with first impressions.
When it was mentioned, I mistook which Labyrinth it was, but so it was an interesting change for a movie. I wasn't expecting the kind of movie that it actually turned out to be, but I found that it was fairly well done and fairly wove the fantasy and the reality well together on the initial.
I was also surprised by the kind of movie it was. I was expecting a horror slasher, and it was definitely not that. I would say the movie is well acted, well written, amazingly shot, and I hated it.
Well then, I loved this movie. It happens to be, I think, my favorite movie of all time. Like I said when I was discussing Sucker Punch, I tend to like darker films, and this is very dark. I get it beautifully acted, the score is amazing, the cinematography is breathtaking, and Guillermo del Toro really manages to capture horrific monsters very well. And I'm not just talking about the creatures either, because there is a bigger monster than all the fantasy creatures that there are. I think it's a beautiful film. I'm surprised that people didn't know what they were going in for, because even from the trailers of this film, I sort of got the gist when I first saw it. But anyway, I loved it. Loved it. Alright, do you want to talk about why you hated it?
It was very traumatic, depressing. It's not the kind of storyline that I tend to enjoy. I found there was not enough of the fantasy and way too much of the war movie. I'm not a big fan of war movies and real human monsters, which this was mostly around one central monster. I also found that the fantasy parts felt a little too quick, a little too tacked on, almost as if they're like, here's something horrific, oh, and look at the kind of creepy monster, but don't worry, it's just a monster.
Alright, fair enough. For yourself? Reasons why you liked and why you didn't like it?
I found that the acting was really well done. The girl that played Ophelia, Carrière, I know I butchered the name there.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
She gave the girl, this girl's what, 10, maybe 11? She gave the girl a real sense of morality, a real sense of character, innocence as well in the movie that kind of, it drew you into that character and you kind of didn't, I cared for what the character was going through.
She was instantly likable.
Yes. And I thought that she did her role really well. And on the other end of things, Captain Vidal, Sergei Lopez, the guy who played Captain Vidal, for the role that Captain Vidal had in the movie, I thought that he acted that role extremely well. And whether you liked or you hated the character was because of his acting. It wasn't a facade or a face. You believed that he was that character.
There was some surprise when he was cast for this, actually. because I'm a special features whore, and I went through and I watched all the special features. He's a soap opera actor in Spain, and so they thought he couldn't handle it, but he managed it brilliantly.
Yeah, he did. From the first scene, which was him fixing the watch,
Yes.
which was thematically brilliant throughout the whole movie.
Yes, beautiful. Yes.
You knew right away this was the villain.
Yeah. Complete psychopath.
Meanwhile, the creatures, when you saw them, you weren't sure that they were good or evil. They were sort of ambiguous.
Really, the child-eating monster was ambiguous.
Okay. the fairies.
Didn't get that away, right?
Right.
The fairies and the fawn.
Yes, I liked that you couldn't tell whether they were good or evil, and I liked that so much because in all sort of Western fairy stories, like the old ones, fairies aren't on the side of man, and they aren't necessarily against man either. So that dichotomy worked really, 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 really well in my mind.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have anything bad to say about this film. I don't, except there is one scene, and only one, and I can handle my gore. I watch a lot of gory movies, and they don't really faze me. When the captain is pummeling that boy's face in with the butt of the bottle, I actually had to turn away. I was a little sick. And I've seen this movie more than 10 times, and every single time I'm like, oh, no, I can't watch.
That's what turned me. Like, I feel
Right
like
away.
this is such an awesome movie that, oh my god. And then there was a few more scenes not as bad, but similar.
Yeah.
It is unflinching in what it shows. You see the first cut into the leg there when the doctor has to work on
I
it.
didn't see that.
You went like this?
Yeah.
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 There are some scenes there.
As much as I don't like it, I understand the importance. The graphicness and the gore are meant to be the opposite side of the fantasy life. They're supposed to play off each other and really emphasize each other's strengths. And it's brilliantly done. It's just fun to watch.
No, it's not fun to watch, but the whole movie is just so brilliant in my head. I'm willing to go through those few moments, few stomach-turning moments to get to the ending.
I think I would have rather read it as a book.
Really?
Yeah. But see, here's the interesting thing, and I did look this up because a lot of movies are based off of books. You can tell because there's a lot of richness to it. You watch The Lord of the Rings, for example. Oh, there's got to be a book there. But yeah.
By the way, if you don't know that the films
Are
are based off the books, we can't be friends with you. You may continue.
Lord of the Rings.
Seriously.
There's the other thing that a lot of the time, it's not necessarily richness, but missing explanations or things that they gloss over in the world that are super important, but the filmmakers are so into the book that they don't realize that's important.
It's true. But, well,
Yeah.
that guy.
The double L is a year
Okay,
sound.
so he wrote, directed, and produced this film.
Yes.
He did mention that he has referenced, he got some inspiration from other tales and fairy tales and the like. However, it is not based on a book. This movie is from his head.
Yeah, I want to hug this man.
It is so
Love his
rich,
animation.
whether it is the fawn, played by Doug Jones, or the other creatures that are in here. It's hard to believe that this all comes from his head and not some description in the book.
Yeah.
But this is all him, and this is absolutely amazing. And on that angle, he's wrote, directed, produced this one. He's also done the screenwriting for The Hobbit and The Desolation of Smaug. He's done the directing of Pacific Rim and Blade 2, and he's done the directing and screenwriting of Hellboy 2. So he's got, so he's got quite a...
And this is why I want to hug him. Honestly, the man's imagination.
If you recognize the mannerisms of either of the big creatures, it's Doug Jones. He's the Johnny Depp to...
He's the Johnny Depp of creatures.
Yeah, he's in Del Toro's everything.
He was also in Doom.
Yes. He's a brilliant character actor. He was in Coffee also.
Was he?
The Silent episode. He was one of the gentlemen.
Really?
Yeah. He's absolutely brilliant and one of the nicest guys.
Now you're going to find that episode.
Yeah, I'm going to go watch all the stuff that are Doug Jones in.
Which is why I was excited for Hobbit. I thought when he was supposed to direct it. That may be Doug Jones and no, nope. Hold on, it's gonna come to me.
Robin Williams.
Of course, Robin Williams.
He would be brilliant in The Hobbit.
Wow.
He would be all of the characters.
Smeagol
Oh,
would act together.
yes. Yeah. Crap, what's his name?
I can't.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I feel a horrible person.
I know. I should know his
He was
name.
in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. He was in
Yeah.
this. He was King Kong.
I know he does a whole bunch of rock climbing.
He was second unit director for Hobbit.
At any rate, Smeagol.
That guy.
Andy Serkis.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm sorry, Andy Serkis.
I'm very sorry. But if you want to complain, we'd love to interact with you.
Yeah. There are certain horror movies that I cannot watch, and these are all horror movies where things can actually happen. So anything psychological that deals with the real world, it tends to turn my stomach a little bit. And I appreciate Pan's Labyrinth for the fantasy element, because if it was just the monster that is the captain, there's no way I'd be able to get through the film, because people are like that. There are some people who are that monstrous, and I would be really, really, really upset. But because of the fantasy element, in my head, it was all fantasy. So I could handle it all.
The movie, I found that the way that he both juxtaposed everything and also brought it together was well between the fantasy and the realism. You know from the beginning that she's coming in with her pregnant mother to meet her to live with her new stepfather, which is the captain. You know that in the first 5 minutes. No big deal. And he's there basically to root out some rebels. Okay, fine. Now, as things progress on the war aspect, things also progress as well on the fantasy element. The girl retreats in her head into that fantasy element more to help her deal with, obviously deal with the real life events that are going on. That for someone so young, she's clearly having issues dealing with. So, like most kids, you withdraw it in this case into her head. But the more and more that becomes part of her life and such, it is, like I mentioned before, it's very unflinching on the war aspect, but also in how the fantasy creatures help her to deal with those kind of issues that is happening in real life too, help her work through some of those things. There is social aggression in the fantasy creatures that she sees in the real life, so she has to work through that. So I found that aspect was really well done.
Yeah.
It was very well done. And I think it would be more appreciated on the second viewing, because in the first viewing, the whole structure of the narrative tells you the fantasy is real. From the opening with the fairy tale starting and all that, I was convinced it was real until the captain saw her talking to the father. And then I was like, oh crap.
Yeah.
And I had a Sixth Sense moment without them going through everything.
Her coming in the car to start the fantasy books.
Well, no, because I thought that was just to show how different she was from the time. Because right now, a kid with fantasy books is normal. Back then, war was on, people had to be practical. Fantasy books were considered flight. And they say that to her consistently.
Yeah.
So you're cheering for the person who is into genre, obviously.
See, I had a different take on, because I am so fixated on this being a fantasy film, an actual, like a fairy tale for adults, that talks about how magic is actually in the world. But I viewed the film sort of as a unicorn idea. The captain wasn't innocent, so he couldn't see the form. Now, when the captain was seeing the space where the form wasn't, you could still hear the form's voice. But because he was drugged, maybe it was, yeah. So that was the form idea for me, because I refused to believe that the fairy world was not real in this film. She's a fairy princess, damn it.
Just the last scene with the glowing gold and the high pillars and the thrones, it felt too good, too right compared to everything else in the fantasy world.
Yep, so it had a happy ending.
It felt...
Although, I have to say though, on the issue of the colours, you can tell the difference between the real world and the fantasy world, because no matter what's going on in the fantasy world, the colours are always really vivid, really bright and sort of in your face compared to the muted colours of reality. Which, you know, makes sense, because reality is hard and gloomy and often quite dull for a young thing who's used to great flights of imagination. So when she goes to the fairy world and everything is rich, bright colours and there's beautiful golden sunshine, and that felt completely normal for me.
And it was really interesting that he didn't make up any color palettes. The real world was a standard war movie color palette.
Yes.
The fantasy world was a standard fantasy color palette. So you automatically knew, no matter what culture you've seen movies in the last 20 years, what they were.
Yeah.
On a different note here, when we wrote there's some mention on the subtitles. I did do a little looking into those as well, and I found that Del Toro, he wrote the subtitles himself, specifically for the English and for whatever the other ones are. It's a Spanish movie. I watched it with English subtitles.
I'm glad you didn't watch it
Maybe
dubbed.
it's Italian or something.
There was a Italian, French, all over. There's the Portuguese.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe there's some added, but he wrote the first couple at any rate because he was disappointed with the subtitles of his previous film. In an interview, he said that they were for the thinking impaired and incredibly bad. So he spent a month working with 2 other people and said that he did not want it to feel like watching a subtitled film.
Well, it worked, because I barely even noticed that I was watching the subtitle film.
So sometimes there's a little bit lost in translation there, or it feels too clunky when you're watching subtitles. And so I think he sacrificed a little bit there for it to be more fluid and to feel
well, it does make sense, because we very rarely in English say "until tomorrow" when we're wishing somebody good night. And so that explains why "hasta mañana" was translated in the subtitles to "good night." It's not good night, it's until tomorrow. We don't generally say that as English-speaking people anymore.
A lot of translations, if they're not professionally translated by the author or the director himself, it tends to be still.
Yeah, I have noticed. Yeah, I'm glad you guys didn't watch this dubbed. Because dubbed movies are the worst. Oh yeah.
The only time I would is if there's a really good writer and a really good cast. So there's a few of the Miyamoto movies that have some amazing casts. But I watch both sides.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm impressed that you looked up what the subtitles were all about.
I feel underprepared.
I know, right? I just looked up what the movie was about when it was put out.
I'm sorry.
Just watch the movie.
We're reviewing the movie here, right? Now,
we're experts.
What is this research? I write fantasy. I don't need it.
So with the fawn, with the other things I was looking into, Del Toro had specifically mentioned, it specifically said that the fawn in the film is not supposed to represent Pan. In Spanish, the title refers to the fauns in Roman mythology, and apparently in English, German, and French, it refers to the faun-like Greek character Pan. But it doesn't, it's supposed to all be in his mind. Though, of course, a lot of fantasies and fairy tales are taken from mythological creatures, therefore, this similarity to mythological creatures.
I complained to my wife about that.
Yeah.
But it's a catchy name.
It is. It makes it.
The
Yeah,
Labyrinth
it's
of the fawn.
Yeah,
Not
which is what it is in Spanish. And Pan wasn't the only faun in existence. He was a faun.
Yeah.
Although, wasn't he a satyr? He was a satyr. But, let's not be pretending.
You're right, you're allowed.
Oh god, if everybody was pretending that stuff I wrote, I'd be in trouble. I was going to say something more on the
But he's never called that.
No, he's never called Pan.
Yeah.
He's just, I am a fool.
I like his description of his name.
Yeah.
So along the lines of, so old that even the trees don't remember it or something like that.
Or only the trees and the wind can pronounce it.
Yeah.
It was very poetic. And yeah.
And the guy, as we talked about Doug Jones before, the guy who acted out the fawn creature did a very good job. Actually, I should correct myself on presenting it as a human
to us again.
A humanoid creature, not a human creature.
He's really good at that.
He walked like in a stilted, jilted kind of way. It was like not quite human.
Yeah, sort of more tree-ish than.
Yes.
You really got a sense of how ancient he was and how alien.
Something different, and the visual effects, but also the little minor sound effects. When he walks, he creaks, you know, things like that. Just kind of draw you in a little bit more. The soundtrack was suited. I didn't find anything to be really out of place. It worked really well.
Oh, and that melody. I cannot not tear up every time I hear that melody. Since the first time I watched the melody that is hummed at midway point.
Yeah. And then at the end.
Yeah. Every time I hear it, I'm like... And that's another thing about this filmmaking is, there are sad movies that I watch that when I rewatch, I'm like, no, well, that was a bit sad. But this movie, 10 or 15 times later, every single time I am a sobbing mess at the end of this movie. Like this morning, I was rewatching it just because. I'm sitting down on my couch, and at the end of the film, I'm like... And it's not even pretty crying, it's like full-on racking sobs, like I'm shaking on the couch. No. It's pretty horrific. Yeah, it gets me every single time, and that's...
I was tearing up yesterday. Oh, and then I was going,
why?
why? This is awful. Oh, I would have been much happier, much angrier if she had killed the innocent.
Yes, and I love that the last test was... I love how disobedient she was as a character. I love that she had her own mind. Yeah, but there are some, like when I was a kid, I was terrified of upsetting parents and adults. So I would just blindly do whatever they told me to do. But she didn't, and she was tough, and the fantasy world helped her be more resilient, but I found that even still she was incredibly resilient. And still
intelligent. She
and very
understood everything that
clever.
was going on.
Yeah, very clever. Yeah, I appreciate that very much. Okay. So, if you were to give this movie a rating out of 5 stars.
I'm going to give it 2 ratings. One in the end I liked it, which is 2 out of 5. And as a movie, I would give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
Personally, I really enjoyed this movie. I found I didn't have to work to follow the plot at all. The fantasy and the real life worked well together. Overall, honestly, 5 out of 5. I really thoroughly enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, that's me too. 5 stars. The only movie in my collection I would give 5 stars. I just found the cinematography beautiful. The music was incredible. The acting was brilliant. It just really, and small aside, I do want to bring this up because I seem to bring this up every single time, but iconography, Celtic studies, yeah, lots of Celtic iconography, which I very much appreciated. So 5 out of 5 for me. Okay, so watch this movie, is what we're saying. Now for the next one. Who wants to pick? You pick.
Okay, let's see. Picked well last week.
Yes, you did.
Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl.
Good!
Is that the first one?
Yes, it's the first one.
Nice, a nice late movie.
Something cheery instead of the depressing stuff we've been reviewing.
Well, not continuously, but it's okay.
Okay, that's everything. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to follow the conversation, hashtag NATRTPL for Pan's Labyrinth. If you want to suggest a film, hashtag NATRT, yeah, film, on Twitter. Leave a comment here or leave something on Facebook. I'll post up a question for you. Alright, thanks! Bye!
Andy Serkis is here to kick your ass.
Aww.